Well, again, welcome everyone. I'm Shayla Macedonia with TEA. Brian Doran is also on the line. Today, you have logged into the Summer Learning Framework webinar series. We are on part 8 of the series, which we are super excited about, master scheduling. So we will go ahead and dive in. We're excited to be with you guys today. Brian and I are with TEA, and a lot of this work, this summer learning work that TEA has dove into to help support you guys is really funded or partnered with by the Wallace Foundation. And a lot of the evidence-based research we are looking at today is from the RAND Corporation. Lastly, one of our partners for the Summer Learning Framework is the Learning Agenda. So the Summer Learning Framework, it's not, when you think about it, like, what does that really mean? If you've taken part in our series, we are thankful that you keep coming back. If this is your first webinar, basically TEA looked at a bunch of RAND research and along with the Learning Agenda, the Wallace Foundation, came up with 9 essential components, which is really what you see in these honeycomb figurines here. They're the 9 elements of what makes up a high quality summer learning program. And today we are focusing in on one of those elements, and it is the master scheduling. How do you create a schedule for your campus, for your district, that really allows for a high quality summer learning program? All right, so the Summer Learning Framework is a free suite of resources to help districts with design, planning, and onboarding supports to implement high quality summer learning. So I want to emphasize that phrase, free suite of resources. The Summer Learning Framework does not involve an application. It does not involve, you don't have to apply to be a part of it. You don't have to pay to be a part of it. This is a suite of resources. This is information. Use it if you want, don't have to use it. You can use it to plan for summer 21. You can use it to plan for summer 22. So we're excited about that aspect, and the flexibility there hopefully can empower you guys at the district level. So the framework's really broken down in 3 buckets. The first is the statewide webinar series, which Brian and I have so faithfully been a part of over the last 8 webinars. Hopefully some of you guys have too. And then the next part is the planning and resources, tools, examples, and templates. So every webinar has accompanying tools. So for the master scheduling webinar today, there will be specific tools and district examples that go along with this webinar on the Texas Home Learning website, Texas Home Learning /summer. And then the last part is THL summer units. Basically, we have additional support for you guys, materials, stipends for teachers. That's a huge, jazz hands worthy resource available for Texas Home Learning through KRIMZY, which we will talk about later on this call. So I want to pivot for a moment and talk about the second section, the planning, resources, tools, examples, and templates. The Summer Learning Framework, stick with me now, has one master tool, and we're going to go take a look at it right now. So if you go to texashomelearning.org/summer, and you click Summer Supports, you are going to scroll to the Summer Learning Framework. At the top, you'll see a definition, kind of what we've just been talking about. Scroll down a little bit and you can see the webinar series. You can see the previous recordings and slides from the other webinars in the Summer Learning Framework. You can see the remaining webinars we have coming up. Some of the THL Summer Unit Overview product-specific webinars on the right here. But really what I want to show you guys is this highlighted section right here that says Start Here. When you're thinking about what tools do I really need for summer learning planning, you're going to want to look at this master tool, the Summer Learning Work Plan tool. So if we open it up, this tool essentially covers every element of the 9 elements in the Summer Learning Framework. And when you think about how to use this tool, you're really going to want to ask yourself, which summer am I planning for? Am I planning for summer 21 or am I planning for summer 22? Those of you who are planning for summer 21, come down here to the 3-month expedited planning phase. This tells you, how do I plan for summer in 3 months? And you can see the elements of the summer learning framework on the left column here. So designing and planning, staffing and PD, and then you can even see, for example, today, schedules and rosters, which is what we'll be talking about. If you are on this webinar and you're really planning for summer 22, you can go ahead and click on the 12-month planning phase tab. This is going to give you an overview of things to think through over the next 12 months as you plan for summer, in accordance with the same elements we talked about. The summer learning framework is composed of: staffing and PD, crime and culture, enrichment, et cetera, et cetera. So if you are trying to figure out one tool to take away from this webinar, this is it. And again, you can find that at texasHomeLearning/summer. Okay, back to the presentation. I want to highlight for a moment real quick the webinars for today or upcoming. In the column on the left, you can see the webinars that we have already conducted. The recordings are available. I just showed you guys those online. And today we are talking about master scheduling at 10 a.m. Don't forget to tune in to academics and enrichment. We have an enrichment webinar coming on at 11. So if you are feeling super ambitious, please join us for both hours. We would love to see your face. And then lastly, this is the summer learning work plan tool, kind of a snapshot of it that we just looked at online. This tool provides a research-based work plan that includes planning steps for districts and school leaders on a 3-month planning timeline. The tool is aligned with the summer learning framework. So this is like a snapshot. We are here. Today we'll be talking about schedules and rosters. And then if you are looking, where was that link again that Shaylin just said? It's right here in the yellow box, texasHomeLearning.org/summer. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Brian. We just want to say really quick that we're so glad you're here. Please go ahead and share in the chat that you're here, and we'd love to see you guys actively typing and chatting and interacting with us, because we'd love to be with you guys in person, but Zoom will have to suffice. Over to you, Brian.
Great, thank you, Shaylin. And one other additional thing to underscore for the summer learning work plan, for anything that we're sharing with Google Docs, if you don't use Google Docs a lot, you can make a copy of any of those documents and edit them yourselves to make them as useful for yourself as it needs to be. So that's under the file menu, and just make a copy. Today, though, we are talking through scheduling. So we have essentially 4 objectives that we're looking at today. First is starting off with some of the RAND research-based practices that RAND themselves have identified for summer learning programs. Second is to learn from existing district schedules, how they've essentially translated that research into a summer learning schedule. We'll also look at considerations for using THL products in summer units, and what that can look like from a scheduling perspective. And then finally have a couple of resources at the end that we'll walk through as potential next steps and resources for you to use in your scheduling process. So I do want to start, we have grounded each of these webinars in the RAND research study, Getting to Work on Summer Learning. This is one of the most comprehensive studies on summer learning that is in existence, and they have just a wealth of different resources and recommendations through this study that they've codified, and we are able to, as practitioners, put into practice. And so one of the most pressing pieces around summer learning that RAND found, they studied 5 districts very intensely and documented the instructional time and how districts were using, and down to the campus and classroom level, how districts were using their instructional time. And one of the big takeaways here is the amount of intended instruction that they observed at the participating campuses was dramatically less than what was intended. And so this is likely not a surprise for folks on this call, but it's worth underscoring here. The actual intended instructional hours lost in the best case scenario of the districts that they studied was 28% of the intended instructional hours were lost. And then in the worst case for District E, it was 48% of the intended instructional hours lost. So that's a very dramatic number to look at, and really can heavily impact the outcomes of a summer program. Knowing that, Rand also saw some practices that were more promising within these districts, and so they have basically 5 recommendations that we've taken out from that study that we're going to walk through here. So first, in order to have a dosage amount for students to actually have a measurable impact on the following year's state exams, Rand saw that the programs needed to be 5 weeks, and they needed to focus on 3 to 4 hours of instruction each day. And this dosage is really based off of also what they observed on the attendance front. And so the typical student that they tracked attended 75% of the program days, and then they also needed 25 hours of math and 34 hours of ELA instruction in order to see that improvement on subsequent exams. And so our recommendation here is, to the extent that you're able, recognizing that we are in early April at this point, but to the extent that you're able, really extend your summer programs in terms of number of days. So we recommend a 25-day program that helps account for that 75% attendance rate, as well as a drop in enrollment that folks sometimes see. We also recommend aiming to schedule 120 minutes of reading language arts, and then 90 minutes of math per day to the degree that your schedule allows. Rand recommends 6-hour days and balancing those days between those academic pieces, and then making sure that you have a healthy chunk for enrichment as well, which really supports student attendance and drives those outcomes. And then finally, the other impact of having a 5-week program or more is you're minimizing that summer gap. And so you're able to provide more academic opportunities over the course of summer. And now the time that students are potentially without academic opportunities is much, much shorter than what it would have been otherwise. Another finding from the RAND study that they highlighted was just ensuring that schedules provide time for transitions. So the classrooms that they observed in 2014, almost 2/3 of those classes started late based off of what the schedule stated. And then 1/3 of them ended early, and 1/5 both started late and ended early. So this is kind of tying into that lost instructional time. So a couple things to help account for this from a scheduling perspective. One is try to build in those transitions into the master schedule where possible. And then also lengthen the summer day to account for a realistic time for transitions in the day. Very similar to a transition piece, they unsurprisingly here found that blocks of academic time are more impactful than if you have to break up the academic blocks with either lunch or breaks or transitions. And so it's somewhat obvious of a statement to say, but it's helpful to see the data behind it. So of the classes that they observed, multi-part mathematics and ELA classes lost 27 class minutes on average, as opposed to a continuous class, which is losing an average of 15 minutes. So from a scheduling perspective, that means avoiding scheduling those academic blocks with breaks such as lunch in the middle, and then minimize the impact of class launch and wrap-up activities. So that is both a scheduling component, but also potentially more on the teacher PD and site expectations for your summer program. Another component here for scheduling in terms of minimizing the lost instructional time, strong logistics equals more instruction. We'll talk a little bit more about site operations tomorrow on our webinar if you are interested. But again, this is not a surprising recommendation. However, it is something that they saw and observed in all of their programs. Late buses, meal delivery, and other components around logistics were widespread at summer programs, arguably more so than in typical school years, just given the nature of summer programming. Recommendations here include the operations team in planning early and often, and then also plan for materials delivery to teachers ahead of any initial professional development, which would then also get those materials in time for when students are on campus. Finally, from a scheduling / site expectations standpoint, the final recommendation here from Rand is communicate your scheduling and transition and academic expectation strategies to site leaders and teachers effectively. A couple of things in practice here to emphasize. One is emphasize the risk of lost instructional time with site leaders who set the tone at their campus. Potentially, it's even sharing that slide around the 5 districts that Rand studied. And then also provide teachers with engaging strategies to maximize student involvement from the professional development standpoint. Again, these are oftentimes with everything summer learning, things start to morph, and scheduling overlaps with things like professional development, but they are all related to instructional time and number of recommended minutes here. All right, would love to hear, we're after this, we're gonna pop into some district examples of schedules, but would love to hear from the group, the folks that we have on the call, based on your vision for summer learning, what are some of the most important components that you're factoring into your summer schedule? What are you looking at? What are you thinking about? Interested to hear. If you could pop some thoughts in the chat, we'd love to see what you're looking for.
I see active brain breaks from Nicole Gold. Love that. Academics tied to enrichment. Definitely important. What else, guys? It's kind of like putting in a bag of popcorn, you know, it's like a few kernels at first, and then I'm really excited to see everyone just sharing what are the things they're thinking about for summer, so unique to your district. All right, Nirmala, 2 hours of reading, 2 of math, 2 for enrichment. Ooh, holistic, I like it. Scheduled transitions from Kim Neal. Okay, making half days impactful. Love that. Social emotional learning. Technology. Love that. Balance. Totally. Everybody needs that.
Should have been the title of this webinar, balance.
Yeah. Core subjects. Definitely, we love seeing those targeted in summer.
Great. Awesome. Keep those coming in, and we'll highlight any others that come in as well. But one thing I do want to do here is we'll move on. And I think one of the other pieces around scheduling is ensuring that the scheduling process is grounded in the reality of the curriculum. Again, not a groundbreaking statement there, but I think one of the pieces that, in my own experience at the district level, working on summer schedules or scheduling in general, is making sure that we have a good understanding of what are the actual needs of the curriculum that you're working with, and that making sure that those blocks that you're building for the students are actually long enough. And so what I'm going to do now is transition into talking through what scheduling impacts could be for if you are looking at Texas Home Learning materials. So as a reminder for folks here, Texas Home Learning is a suite of instructional materials that we have secured the licenses for and are free for use for districts across the state. This is something that you can just go to texashomelearning.org, learn more about, sign up for those materials directly on that website. In addition to regular year instructional materials, we have identified summer units with most of the publishers that are working with us with Texas Home Learning. And so what I'm going to do now is just pop over to another set of slides that we have also hosted on the summer side at Texas Home Learning, just to do a quick review of what some of the expectations would be for a summer unit with Texas Home Learning materials. Let's see here, there we go. So first, this is on texasHomeLearning.org/summer. We have scrolled down from the top of the page and selected the operations tab and scrolled down a little bit more to master scheduling here. And then under the tools and resources, I am now looking at the THL summer unit 1 pages. And so what we have here are a suite of options for you all to consider based on what makes most sense for your summer program, what you're trying to do. So I'm going to walk through some quick hits here for the summer units. The first product here is pre-kindergarten, and that's a product from Teaching Strategies. They have recommended customizations of 3 to 6 week programs. So if you're just running a 3-week program, they have recommendations here of how that would work best with their programs. Their recommended summer units are water and or getting ready for kindergarten. So a couple options here. They dictated or suggested 20 full day or half day lessons, and then similar for getting ready to kindergarten, 15 full day or half day lessons. For math for K through 5, we have kind of a suite of plug and play options here. The core material here would be Eureka Math. They recommend 50 minutes per day for kindergarten and 60 minutes per day for first through fifth grade. Then you can also customize with some supplemental programs. So first option is ST Math. If you do that, ST Math recommends 60 minutes per week. So that would basically add on a minimum of at least 12 minutes per day for that Eureka Math plus ST Math component. And then finally, there's also Eureka Math plus Zern as the supplemental material. And that they recommend an additional 30 minutes per day. And so that would be more of a 80-minute block for kindergarten math, and then 90 minutes for first through fifth grade. So this is essentially saying the same thing. Again, with these slides, as you're going through them, recommend looking at these customizations here for the number of weeks. I know everyone on this call is going to be running a different length of program, and so our goal here is to make this as adaptable for your programs as possible. If you're looking at shorter than 3 weeks, I would take a look at the materials and see what might make most sense. I think when we were talking with publishers, most of, I believe everyone was saying they recommend a minimum of 3 weeks for coherent scope and sequence for their summer programming. So again, these are bucketed out. I kind of talked through the ST Math and Eureka Math already. And then similar to Eureka Math and Zern, you basically add an additional 30 minutes to each Eureka Math lesson. Also another, quick highlight on these slides as you're going through them. We have this box up here, how to access these materials. So these are good resources for you if you're looking at these materials and interested in any of these products. All right, if you're looking at Math 6 through 12, this would be Carnegie Math. And they are recommending essentially 45 minutes per day. And this is based primarily off of their customized Mathia product, which has a customized sequence for students and then also is aligned with teacher facilitated lessons. So more information on this slide for 6 through 12 math. Amplify Texas for RLA K through 5. They again have 3 through 6 week recommendations. And over here we have, so basically here we have a kind of a 3 week and a 6 week recommendation of 120 minutes per day for K through 2nd grade, and then 90 minutes per day for 3rd, 4th, and 5th. Amplify 6 through 8. recommends double blocking their RLA block for if a 3-week or a 4-week program, which would mean 90-minute blocks for those programs. And then for 5 or 6-week programs, that's more aligned to the existing scope and sequence. And so they recommend 45 minutes for those programs. RLA 9 through 12, their recommended block for 3 through 5 weeks is basically a double block of 100 minutes. And then for 6 weeks is a 50-minute block. All right. So again, I found these at THL or texasHomeLearning.org/summer under the master scheduling section, which you do have to click on the operations tab to get there. So operations, master scheduling, and then tools and resources. We have the THL summer unit 1-pagers. We do also have more information on the products themselves under summer supports and THL summer units as well. All right, let's see here. Okay, kind of a correlated resource here that I want to highlight also can be found on the THL's Summer Learning Framework. What we have are, let me scroll down again to operations. If you are interested in using Texas Home Learning materials, and you are also looking to create those master schedules, we have a sample template for THL master schedules to help get you started. So it is here, and you can download it at this site. This is an Excel document, so let me switch my screen share here real quick.
And Brian, I just want to note that link doesn't seem to be working at the moment, so we'll be sure to get that working right after the webinar. Great.
Okay. Thanks for giving us a heads up, folks. So this is what that template looks like. Basically, we have tabs at the bottom for pre-K, elementary, middle, and high. Pre-K, we've separated them out into half-day and full-day recommendations. Again, these are recommendations based off of the minute requirements that the publishers gave us, as well as an attempt to balance that along with the RAND research of minimum of 3 hours of math and reading, and then 6-hour days with enrichment as well. So you'll notice for pre-K, they do recommend a half-day schedule. And so that's this first block here. And then the full day includes a read aloud small group enrichment block, kind of a plug and play as you see fit in the afternoon as well. For elementary here, we've separated them out into kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade, and 3rd and 4th grade. All of these are assuming both Eureka Math and a supplementary product, either ST Math or Zern. And so if you're not doing one of the supplementary products, then you would just say Eureka Math, excuse me, and shorten that block, the amount that it would need to be shortened. But we've built in the requirements here. So for kindergarten, for example, 120-minute block for RLA. Certainly, you would probably want to build in brain breaks and stretch breaks as you see fit there. And then the math block, lunch, recess, and then enrichment in the afternoon. And similar for grades 1 and 2, almost identical actually here, with a slightly extended math block. And then grades 3 through 5, they have a shortened RLA block of 90 minutes. So we put in this is a kind of a hold for additional RLA instruction, independent reading, tutoring, what have you. And then the math block here is 78 to 90 minutes. Middle school, very similar format. So for a 3 or 4 week program, Amplify recommends double blocking their program. So that's a 90-minute double block. To get to that RAND research, we added in an additional reading component here. And then math has a 45-minute block. Again, this is kind of a placeholder activity here of trying to get up to the RAND research. And so to the extent that you have something ready to go for maximizing impact based off of the 3-hour recommended minimum of instruction for RAND, encourage you to do that, and then also look at enrichment at other points throughout the day. From a scheduling standpoint, we have seen with districts that we're working with, many of them are looking at blocking the academics in the morning and then enrichment in the afternoon, or vice versa, which helps from a staffing standpoint. We're also seeing others that are building them throughout the day like you would during a regular school year. And then finally, high school here, very similar kind of structure to middle school. I do want to note there for Odell, for their shorter summer programs, they do recommend double blocking that. So that would extend that Odell time by another 50 minutes. Carnegie Math is a 50-minute block though. And then potential options there for reading or small math small group support, maybe some tutoring, something like that. And then enrichment activities, maybe some project-based learning, something like that in the afternoon. The final tab here is the goal is to basically have all of the minute requirements in one table. And so you can take a look at this reference tab as you're building your own schedules if you're using Texas Home Learning products to help you better plug in the minute requirements. And then as we mentioned in the kind of RAND overview section, definitely recommend building in those transition periods as well. So you'll notice for sake of ease and just knowing that everyone's going to have such a different schedule with your own summer programs, we did not build in explicit transitions here. So you'd want to consider that for your own scheduling process. We will make sure that this gets posted as soon as possible, and you will have full access to that. All right, let me switch back to the slides real quick.
Hey, Brian, we do have a question coming in from China Crowder. She's asked, is there a chance we could elaborate on some of the RLA products or services? And also happy to point people to texasHomeLearning.org/summer to see the full array of products offered.
Sure. Let me see if actually, Andrew, if you might feel comfortable doing that. Andrew Hodge has joined us from Innovative Instructional Models as well, and did a lot of the work collecting some of this information from our publishers. So, yeah.
Yeah, happy to help out. And good question. And I also don't want to, I think there's a lot of specifics about everything that you could do with regard to, well, summer, which is why we built a framework around it. And then specific contents, right? So you can find information about each individual subject, grade level on TexasHomeLearning.org. We've posted these these recommended summer unit one-pagers that we're calling them on the site. I believe, Brian, I'm not sure, I was just able to join. I think that, yeah, if you go there, you can navigate to them right there. So we posted those there. I would dig into those for whatever content that y'all are interested in for your summer program. If you have additional questions, let us know. And then of course, if you want extra support in doing that, including kind of operational support, professional development support, stipends, there's an opportunity to join the COVID Recovery Instructional Materials Support Initiative, KRIMZY, the summer pilot that we can help with as well.
Great. And China, I'm going to drop a direct link here in the chat to that overview. Great. Thank you, Andrew. All right. All right, so we've talked through the sample summer schedule with THL materials. We've talked through the summer unit one-pagers. I also want to underscore or highlight here rather, another resource that we have on the master scheduling section, and that is this master scheduling planning process that we have been working to, one of our colleagues has been working to really essentially really clearly define the process for master scheduling. Within our division, we work with a number of different scheduling processes, including summer learning. And so the goal here is basically to show what we are seeing across districts as some of the most common themes of strong scheduling processes. I think, certainly speaking from my own experience, I've had experiences where it's a charge of like, hey, just go build a summer schedule or go build a schedule and then bring it back to us. and then it's just like nonstop iteration back and forth because you didn't understand that there's X component that needs to be taken into account. And so it's that version, that process has its merits. We think there could potentially be also better processes out there, especially with the more time that you have. So what this document does, it's a way to try to map out that process in a certain way. And this is a early version of this document. We'll be looking to continually improve this. But first, we start out with just some design principles around scheduling. So the first design principle here is context and desired outcome drive the decision. So similar to what we just did here, it's very important to identify what the most critical components to your program are. Curricular minutes oftentimes really drive what the schedule should look like. And then additionally, talent, enrollment, budget, all of those considerations as well. Additionally, know what you want to accomplish. Many times folks that are charged with making a schedule aren't necessarily the ones who are setting the strategy or vision for a program. So just make sure that we're having good communication there. It's very similar to that, work together to decide. So we have seen examples of districts with summer programming. If you joined us yesterday with Grand Prairie ISD, Pat Lewis talked about her steering committee and the number of different people that she was including on regular occasion with that. And so similar to that for the scheduling piece, understand who you need to bring in and bring them in early and often. Know your options. What are the hard constraints and what are the trade-offs, and document those and get alignment on those ahead of building the schedule. And then also just this continuous improvement piece. So especially for summer learning, where it's potentially a 5-week program, take time at the end or even in the middle of the program to see what's working and what's not, and document that for the future year's program. We recommend basically 3 phases here. First is planning. This was built for a full year scheduling process. And so there are 2 columns here. First is a recommended duration for the academic year. And then also realizing where we are for summer of 21. Here's a recommended duration if you're just getting started on the scheduling process for this summer. So typically we would say 3 to 4 weeks of planning for academic year. But here we're saying 1 to 2 weeks, a shortened period here for the summer. Next phase is design, 2 to 3 weeks. So you're looking at revising that master schedule and making sure that you're meeting your stated goals. And then finally, evaluation and reflection. This would take place likely after the program is over, or potentially start in the midst of it as you're looking at that and looking for opportunities for continuous improvement. This next page is a double click of each of those phases with some objectives. So again, this cross-functional piece we've seen to be very valuable with districts. The schedule builder, campus leader, curriculum leaders, finance teammate, and staffing teammate. Additionally, really want to highlight special populations and including them early as well, particularly special education, but also ELL and gifted and talented programs. And then all of these pieces as well. Of course, the ops team needs to be brought in to make sure that meal times actually make sense, transportation times make sense, and then everyone else on this list as well. Phase 2 iteration of the build and iterate on the master schedule, some objectives here. And then additionally, phase 3, we have the implement and revise the master schedule, the more continuous improvement piece. So really you're looking at effectiveness, you're looking at areas of growth and trying to make sure that that is captured for future years. So this is meant to be a process. If you are taking a look at getting your schedule started right now, hopefully this can be helpful and think through who to bring in and what kind of process to use over the next couple of weeks as we get closer and closer to the summer of 21. And this can also be found at texashomelearnings.org/summer under this master schedule planning process. All right. Next, I want to highlight two sample schedules that we have from a couple districts that we have had the good fortune of working with over the course of this year with the ADSI Planning and Execution Program. So they are working on building summer programs for the summer of 21, Bartlett ISD and Snyder ISD. And they are working basically very similar to what we've talked through today. They're working to build RAND best practices into their schedules and their summer programs overall. And so what we have are some example schedules that do that. And so first is Bartlett ISD. So they've separated out into kinder and 1, grades 2 and 3, and grades 4 and 5. And you'll notice some of the things that we talked about from the research base, building in those transitions. They have time for enrichment, SEL time, frequent breaks like recess, and then opportunities for enrichment here in the afternoon. So enrichment choices across the board, and they're able to rotate those through similar to potentially specials during the regular school year. They also here at Bartlett have weekly themes. And so they are going through their summer program and each week in order to help build that recruitment piece, build that student interest piece. They have these weekly themes throughout the course of the summer. So they've named that, this is essentially scope and sequence, high level scope and sequence for literacy, math, and then also enrichment pieces here over on the right. The other schedule I want to highlight here is from Snyder ISD. And this is similar, just wanted to highlight this as an option for some sort of template to build this in. They went more building in enrichment throughout the course of the day. And then also have these times, transition times built in throughout the day, as well as recommended from the RAND research-based practices. The other thing that they have built in from Snyder is field lessons, field trips. So, you know, other considerations basically that you'll want to be on the lookout for as you're going through this. And then also an enrichment schedule here as well, where the enrichment is blocked in the afternoon. So a couple options here from Snyder ISD. The other thing to flag from Snyder ISD is they're participating both in additional day school year as well as the 21st century community 21st century program. So they are building in some of these pieces based off of kind of combining requirements for both programs. Great. Shaylin, any questions or anything that have come in through the chat?
Yes, I wanted to flag one thing. The sample THL master schedules tool that Brian had reviewed earlier, I went ahead and put in the chat so you guys can copy and paste that, open that. We will get that fixed, that link fixed on the website today. Hopefully, it's a little bit of a big link, so I think that's what the holdup is. We have a couple questions coming in. One is, does the evidence suggest a recommending Common Core? And then another is about recess. Recess used to be not something that people prioritized in summer school, but recess was in one of the sample schedules. So could you speak to both of those things, Brian?
So I think the answer that Andrew dropped into the chat for in response to Common Core, TEKS are the standards for Texas. And so that's what we focus on. That's what the instructional materials with Texas Home Learning focus on. And so that is our recommendation. And then from recess standpoint, this is basically a recommendation on building in those enrichment pieces. So in the sample schedule, we've named that as recess. That could look very different depending on what your program is trying to do. It could be social emotional learning. It could be another enrichment piece. It could be arts. Basically, the goal is to build in those opportunities from other sessions. and other areas of RAND research and examples from districts that we've seen across the state, I think one of the critical pieces for summer learning is making sure that it's seen as not just this additional like school day over the course of summer. Summer oftentimes has that stigma of a punitive measure for students. We want to move away from that stigma, given that this can be a super impactful experience for students. And in order to one, remove that stigma, but then also to help improve things like attendance rates, that's where that enrichment piece comes in, of really building those into your schedule. We have the opportunity to do that with this additional time that we're working with. And so it's essentially an opportunity for students to build those days in a way that is almost attuned to a camp, which is some of the things that we saw with our recruitment session last week.
Thanks, Brian. Feel free to keep populating the chat with questions. We are here to answer as much as we can.
Great. All right. Great. So those are the resources that we wanted to highlight today on this call. And sorry, this should say scheduling here on this, but this slide, a couple of next steps here. So access all of those scheduling tools. In particular, if you're using Texas Home Learning, take a look at those one-pagers, take a look at the sample schedule template, and use as you see fit. Second thing here is as Shaylin highlighted at the top of the call, visit the work planning tool and use that to help guide you over the next couple months to the extent that it is helpful for you. And then also we are continuously building district examples and other resources. And so we'll be continuing to add to these resources, take a look at what we have there right now. And then also, if you have any additional resources on any of the topics that you think would be interesting for us to take a look at and potentially post, we are all ears and would love to highlight additional work from everyone on this call. I know we have many folks here who have attended several sessions, so would love to see what you all are working at your districts. We have a couple more webinar series throughout the course of this week. From an operations standpoint, tomorrow we have the summer site operations webinar at 11 a.m. And then additionally, right after this at 11 a.m. today, we have the enrichment for summer in 10 minutes. And then additionally, as you are considering Texas Home Learning for your summer units, we have these detailed, deeper dives into each product throughout the course of this week. Several of these recordings are already posted, and then the ones that are still occurring over the next couple of days, you can register for, or we will also be posting recordings of after the fact. A quick pivot, if you are looking at Texas Home Learning materials for the summer or for next school year for that matter, we want to highlight this opportunity, the COVID Recovery Instructional Materials Support Initiative, also known as KRIMZY. This application is open right now for 3 separate opportunities. The first is spring adoption coaching for the 21-22 school year. If you are considering using Texas Home Learning materials in the 21-22 school year and could use some additional coaching support around what makes most sense for your district, I encourage you to apply to that piece. For folks on this call in particular, I want to highlight the summer pilot opportunity. So if you are all in on one of the Texas Home Learning products for a summer unit, encourage you to apply to the summer pilot. Basically, the ask is that we would have your teachers pilot one of the products, give us feedback on that, complete some surveys and other feedback options. And then we would also be able to provide you some benefits, things like stipends for teachers, $1,000 for each teacher that's participating. We would have printed materials for most materials out to you all. And then also professional development for teachers who are going through these products. both option 1 and option 2 here. The application is due April 9th. That is Friday. So we try to design the application so it's not overwhelming, but it you know, probably 30 to 45-minute application. So do encourage you to take a look by April 9th. If you're interested in learning more, if you're concerned about that April 9th timeline, please also reach out to Texas Home Learning at tea.texas.gov. The third option for KRIMZY is the 21-22 full year pilot. So if you're looking at Texas Home Learning materials for 21-22, very similar pilot where we would provide support throughout the course of the 21-22 school year and ongoing professional development for participating teachers. And that would be basically a year-long activity. That application is due June 11th or until capacity is full. You can learn more about all of these options at texashomelearning.org/KRIMZY. All right, and with that is everything for our scheduling session. We'll have kind of a soft closing here, so would love to hear one, any remaining questions that you might have, and then two, as you are kind of processing any information from today, we'd love to hear 1 to 2 takeaways from this session that you think you'll be applying to your summer planning, in particular to scheduling. But in the meantime, as we'll do the soft closing, I'll just say quickly, thank you all for joining us again. We have another webinar here at 11 a.m. around enrichment, which would be a separate login. So hope to see many of you there, as well as tomorrow with the site operations.
Thanks, Brian. We did have one question come in at the elementary level. Does TEA recommend any sort of grading system?
That's a great question. I think from a TEA perspective, these are you know, non-compulsory days. They're not part of the academic calendar, and so I haven't seen anything in the RAND research that would go either way. But I think we can ask the RAND team and see if they have any recommendations there. I think from a TEA perspective, not really. Whatever makes the most sense for your context, but then we can check with the RAND team and see if they have any thoughts.
Thanks, Brian.
And then we have a question here: are the weeks recommended 4 or 5 day weeks? That is less of a consideration. I think 5 day weeks for the programs. Okay, for Texas Home Learning, we're recommending 5 day weeks. I think
I'm sorry, Brian, but I think you should design the summer program the way that it makes sense. When we gave those recommendations, when the publishers gave those recommendations, they're actually based on days. So that's actually a really good clarification point for us to make a correction. So if we say 3 weeks, that's 15 days. So it could actually be a different program, a different length program, as long as those 15 days are.
Yeah. And then so on the flip side, the value add for a 4 day week would be that you're extending that academic instruction longer into the summer and minimizing that academic gap and the opportunity for summer slide. So.
Awesome. Thanks everyone so much for joining. And as Brian said, if you want to leave in the chat 1 or 2 takeaways from the webinar that you'll be applying to your summer learning planning, we would love to see that. And also just a reminder, you can go to texashomelearning.org/summer to register for the webinar on enrichment taking place in just a few minutes. It is a part of our Summer Learning Framework webinar series, but it's a separate registration, and that will be from 11 to noon today.
Great. All right. Thank you everyone for joining. We're going to go ahead and stop this recording, and you can find this later today in the scheduling section for Texas Home Learning.
Ryan, real quick before we drop, if folks are just having such a great time, you're like, you know what, I want another hour of this. So we're going to shift our gears to enrichment. If you do want to stay on, we just threw the link into the chat. If you're interested, totally optional, obviously, and all these will be posted on texashomelearning.org/summer within the next few hours. So thanks.
Total days is 15 days for EC. Do you recall, Andrew? That was a question that came in through the chat. Veronica, EC, is that Eureka Math that you're talking about?
I think she may be talking about your early childhood.
Early childhood, that makes more sense.
Veronica, I'm not sure if you're talking about like a specific early childhood summer program or if you're talking about the unit recommendations. You might clarify real quick. Veronica, if it's helpful, shoot us an email about that. I'm happy to help you problem solve that question, and we will get you the answer that you need. And with that, Brian, you good? Shaylin, you good? You want to close out?
Yep, sounds good.
Awesome.
Thank you everyone for joining us, and looking forward to seeing many of you later this week and potentially in 2 minutes. All right.
Thanks. See y'all.
Thanks, guys.